Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. To all of I'm going to call them super fans because somebody wrote me this morning and said she was a super fan. So, to all of the regular listeners and super fans, thank you so much for being here. To anybody that's new, welcome, welcome, welcome. You are in for such a treat this morning. My special guest this morning is none other than Whitney Johnson. She is the president and CEO of Disruption Advisors and best-selling author on a whole series of books that we will be talking about this morning on disruption. And rather than talk about her, I'm going to bring her in and then talk about her. So, Whitney, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy to have you here. This is so super exciting for me and for everybody who is here this morning. So, I just want to do some proper introductions of
Okay.
you, Whitney. So you can
Proper.
listen and blush. Yes. So you are, of course, the CEO of Disruption Advisors. Inc. 5000 named you one of the fastest growing companies in America in 2020. You were number 8 on the Thinkers 50 list for 2021. You are a regular lecturer and contributor to the Harvard Business School. And of course, you host the fantastic Disrupt Yourself podcast with, the pinnacle guests such as Simon Sinek and Brene Brown, although I really think you're the pinnacle. So there's no distinction there. You are
Thank you.
among equals. And of course, you're the author of several books on disruption, including Disrupt Yourself, Building an A Team, and your latest book, Smart Growth. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Libby. I think we're going to have a great conversation.
I know, and we only have a half an hour, so I think we better dig in.
Okay.
So there's something that you've been saying that really captured my attention. What you're saying is that 2022, so the year that we're in, is going to be a year of tremendous growth for our organizations, and that we should stop calling 2020 year the year of the great resignation, but rather call it the great aspiration. Tell us about this great paradigm shift.
Yeah. So psychologists have found that a period of severe stress, like a pandemic, is often followed by tremendous growth. And they call it post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth. Okay.
Post-traumatic growth. And so if you look at the past few years, we have been under severe stress. And as a consequence of that stress, we've created new neurons, new synapses. We've developed new skills. We've discovered we have capacity we didn't know we had. We're discovering that we're more resilient than we knew that we were. And so as we come out of this time, we're saying, I can't go back to doing what I was doing because I see the world differently than I did before. Right. I want things to be different. I want them to be better. I want more of me. I want more of my life. And so as we're coming out of the pandemic, that growth is happening. And so the reason I'm not calling it the Great Resignation is that implies to me that everybody's just giving up. They're taking all their toys and they're going home. And I think that's what's happening. I think people are saying, I just did this really hard thing. And now I know I'm capable of doing hard things. And I want to be in a situation and I want to work for people who see that I'm capable of hard things. I am aspiring to more. And so for me, it is the great aspiration.
And I love that because, I think the resignation idea is creating a lot of fear among leaders, right? Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose all my people. And, what am I going to do? And that tends to be the time when leaders double down. And I mean, I don't face it anymore being in my own business, but certainly have lots of conversations with people about, the I don't know if it's blindness. Like, why are you asking me to come back to the office when I was so productive at home?
Mhm.
And so they're kind of creating that cycle for themselves in a way.
Yeah. 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 As opposed to saying, okay, first of all, let's celebrate for just a moment of
Mhm.
everything that you accomplished over the past couple of years. Let's look at that. Let's analyze it. Let's celebrate it. And now let's talk about, what do you want to do next? What is that going to look like? Let's also talk about what we as an organization need to do. See where we can find that intersection. But I am committed. I have a cat who's meowing at me. My cat wants to eat so my cat can grow. I am committed to helping you grow. Let's figure out how to do that. And if we can find a way to intersect between you and what the organization needs, then we all win.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And
Mhm.
I think that's a very, very important message for every leader,
Yeah.
but also for employees. I think that there's something on employees too to not just run to the next thing.
Yes.
We'll talk about
Mhm.
growth
Mhm.
and everything that you write about. If you're ready to move, you're ready to move. But it might not be growth, and moving might not equate to exactly the same thing.
Such a great distinction. Such a great distinction. And I think that there is some of that going on right now
Mm,
where people are saying, I'm really tired.
mm,
I've been working very hard the last couple of years, and I know I need a change. I need something.
yeah.
And so sometimes they're making a decision to leave what they're currently doing when in fact they actually love doing that. But
Mhm.
they're climbing a mountain and they're saying, I'm exhausted. And instead of saying, let me just stop on the mountain for a minute or two or three so I can rest and catch
Mhm.
my breath and continue to climb the mountain, people
Yeah.
are saying, "Oh, I'm going to go find a different mountain and start all over again," because
Right.
that's sort of fantasy land for a
Mhm.
little bit. So I think it's a really important distinction, is using this time to say, "Well, do I actually like what I'm doing and want to continue doing it, and I just need a break, or in fact, do I want to do something different?" And I think those are both questions that we need to be asking.
Yeah, I think so. And Tom here is saying that you are spot on with that. Um, it's the great aspiration. Thanks for the inspiration, as we all need to stop using the R word and focus on the great opportunities. Thank you, Tom,
Yeah.
for that
Oh,
comment.
Tom,
Yeah.
I love that you said that. Thank you for saying that, because that was in the back of my mind, but I didn't articulate it, which is, we have a huge opportunity in front of us.
Yeah.
It's a thrilling time if we can be in that place of recognizing that it is an opportunity, for us to grow and change and transform. And
Mhm.
so I love that you double clicked on that word, Tom.
Yeah. And so I wanna double click on what you just said and take you way back,
Uh-huh. All right.
because you have been focused on opportunity
Mm,
long before you became the CEO of Disruption Advisors.
yeah.
You, in fact, earlier in your career, were an award-winning stock analyst,
Hmm.
and you and the late and great Clayton Christensen co-founded the Disruptive Innovation Fund.
Hmm.
And so it was based on a model that you now use, the S curve. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about the S curve in growth,
Uh-huh.
but just describe the roots of you using this S curve,
Yeah.
and in the context of, opportunity and growth.
All right. I love how you framed that. So, as you said, I was working on Wall Street as an equity analyst, and I've had a number of big ahas, but the first big aha was, as an equity analyst, I realized we were doing this training of all of my colleagues, and American Idol was at its zenith. Tom Peters had just written a brand called You, and so we were doing this training, and I found myself spending an inordinate amount of time thinking about, what if all my colleagues were stocks, and what brand would they be? Are they the forensic analyst? Are they the comeback kid? Are they, do they have the relationships, the connector in the relationships? I spent all of this time thinking about them and how they could build momentum. And there was just this tickle on my brain that I was actually more interested in the momentum of people than I was of stocks. So that's data point number one.
And you know what? I thought I knew this story. I'd never heard that before.
You
So
never heard this.
I love this. I'm learning something.
All right. So that happened. This is 2003, so almost 20 years ago now.
Yep.
Around that time, I also come across The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. And he talks about this idea of disruptive innovation, where a silly little thing can take over the world, like the telephone did to the telegraph. And I was covering the emerging markets telecom at the time and realized that that's what was happening, is that wireless was disrupting wireline. So I had this theory to help me understand what was happening. But in parallel to that, I'm having conversations with my manager of saying, hey, I've been doing this about 8 years and I won a lot of awards and I think I want to do something new. And they said, we like you right where you are, something that no one has ever heard anywhere else on the planet. And I now say to myself, I just have been reading about this thing called disruption. Maybe I can apply it to me. Maybe in order for me to do whatever it is I feel like I need to do on this planet, because we don't always know. It's sort of this inchoate experience that we have. I need to disrupt myself. And so I had this notion of disruption also applies to people. Now brings me to the third data point of the fact that I'm more interested in people than I am in stocks, is I'm now investing with Clayton Christensen. Working with him, I co-founded this fund with him and his son. We're using the S curve, popularized back in the 50s and 60s, to think about how groups change over time, how ideas are adopted over time, to figure out how quickly an innovation would be adopted. As we're doing that, I think, maybe this can apply to people. So that was my aha. So stocks, people momentum, disruption, not products, people, S curve, not groups, but individuals, that it could be a model for how we learn and how we grow.
I love it. And you know what? The world has changed because of how you have adopted the S curve from from the stock market to who we are as individuals. So let's talk about what the S curve of learning is then. And I have a diagram so we can speak to that.
Wonderful.
At the same time. So walk us through this S curve of learning.
Yeah. All right. So it applies to you, an individual. I'm actually going to, I can keep looking at you, Libby. So I'm like, do I look at the camera? Do I look at you? So the S curve, what this does, as I just said, is it's a map for you to think about what growth looks like, and more specifically, the emotional arc of growth. And so whenever you start something new, your brain is running a predictive model. It's saying, what do I need to do? I'm at the bottom of this S, or the bottom of the mountain. What do I need to do in order for me to get to the top of the mountain? And so at the base of this S, or the launch point, you're making a lot of predictions about what it's going to take to be successful in this role, building this company, becoming its speaker, whatever it is. And many of those predictions are incorrect. And so your dopamine is dropping. So the chemical messenger of delight, that reward chemical, it drops. And so you're having this experience of, that doesn't feel very good. This is kind of a slog. You're also trying to map the territory of doing, I don't know what it's like. Who do I talk to inside of this organization to get something done? So your brain is making, excuse me, I'm going to drink a little hint water. So your brain is trying to make all of these memories, so it's exhausted. So, wow, this is hard. And you've got this big identity shift that's happening, because you were at the top of the mountain and now you're at the base of the mountain. And who are you if you're not who you were? And so the experience that you have at the launch point is you feel overwhelmed. You can feel uncomfortable, you can feel awkward, you can feel impatient. And it's not that growth isn't happening. It is. In fact, it's happening very quickly. But the experience that you're having is that it's slow. So that's the launch point of the curve. And so, excuse me. And once you know that, wow, all right, I need you to talk for a minute. Why don't you reflect on what I just said while I take a sip of water?
Okay. So, a bunch of things come to mind. You start a new job and it's like you're surrounded by stupid guys. You don't even know how to pick up your phone or work a copy machine anymore.
Right.
So, or a copy machine. How old am I? A printer. How's that? And yeah, it feels like you're forever trying to get in the groove, and everybody around you is speaking this language
Yep.
that apparently is your mother tongue, but you have no idea what anybody is saying.
Right.
And you're being introduced to people and there's chit chat, and you think, I don't know if I even belong here.
Mhm.
And I start to also think maybe that the grass was not so brown
Mhm.
where I was, and why did I make this move?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And now I think my throat has
Oh,
cleared.
good.
And so what I want everybody to remember as they're thinking about the launch point, and the reason why this is so helpful is that when you start something new and you're having all of those experiences of discomfort and impatience, you can say, "Oh yeah, this is exactly how I'm supposed to feel."
Mhm,
It
mhm.
normalizes the experience so that you don't get into your head and say, "Oh, I can't do this. I shouldn't be doing this. This doesn't make sense for me to do." No, no, no. This is normal. This is exactly how you're supposed to feel. So that's the one point.
And I love the science that you've brought into this conversation too. I mean, I really should have paid more attention in biology class, because now I love all the brain science,
Mhm.
and it's become accessible for
Right.
people. But to understand that it's your dopamine that is causing this hormonal reaction, and I would assume your cortisol is also going up,
Yeah.
and all of those things are sort of happening together.
Right.
But, it really can feel disconcerting. But you can also say, "It's just my brain."
Yeah, it's just my brain, and I love that you said cortisol too, because once you know this, because again, there's this piece of, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if," and so the cortisol starts ramping up as well. As again, if you've got this, you basically have this map, and you can say, "Here's where I am on the map.
Mhm,
I'm now oriented. I don't need to be afraid because I know exactly where I am. I know exactly how I'm supposed to be feeling, and I know what to do next." And
mhm.
so this orients you on the process or on the mountain of your growth. So
Yep,
that's the launch point. Now let's go into the sweet spot. What's
yeah.
happening here?
And I just wanna do a quick time check because we've only got 10 minutes left.
Okay, I'll go fast. All
Okay.
right, fast, fast, fast. Okay, so in the sweet spot, you're continuing to run that model, and now your predictions are increasingly accurate. Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, everybody. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I'm clearing my throat because it's important. Okay. Predictions are increasingly accurate. So now what's happening is your brain is going, wow, I got that right. I got that right. I got that right. And so there's all this dopamine. And so it's exhilarating. And your brain says, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, because it's hard, but not too hard, easy, but not too easy. So at the launch point, growth felt slow. Dopamine was dropping. Now in the sweet spot, you've got this experience of dopamine is spiking, and growth is not only happening, but it feels fast. So you've got
Mhm,
slow and then fast. And in mastery, the experience that you're having is you figured it out. The model is done, it is complete. It's like playing a major C chord on the piano. Done.
mhm,
Ta-da. But that means that there's very little dopamine, and your brain is saying, huh, this is kind of boring. I've seen all of this before, and so time goes by really fast, but your growth is very slow.
mhm.
And so you've completed the growth cycle. You now have all this latent innovative potential because you're status quo, and your brain's saying, "Give me something new to do."
Yeah.
So you can go back to the launch point. And it's that launch point, sweet spot mastery. It traces the emotional arc of your growth. It once you can complete that growth cycle and know how to navigate every part of that growth cycle, then you can grow faster. You can grow more effectively. You can go out and aspire to what you want to do because you have a map of what your growth is going to look like.
Right. I love it. And there's a couple of comments. Cheryl says, loves this model. Um, Great explanation, ladies. So thank you, Cheryl. Really great explanation, Whitney. I've been studying this for a year now, with the first book, now with the second book. So let's talk about smart growth
Okay.
before we run out of time. So smart growth, first of all, the stories are amazing. I mean, I could spend an hour just asking you where you found these people, and the stories are so rich and tell such a compelling story about all of this, but also in a lot more detail.
Mhm.
And, you've already said a little bit of this, like what it feels like, what it looks like, even the pace that you experience at each stage of growth. There's one thing that we haven't really talked about, which is the jump.
Uh-huh.
But I want to talk about smart growth itself.
Yeah.
Let's not leave people hanging. Like once they hit that mastery piece,
Yeah.
what are they going to do next?
Yeah. Yeah. So once you hit mastery, what you want to think about are two things. Number one is you want to stop. You're at the top of the mountain and you want to celebrate.
Hmm.
And you're going to celebrate for a couple of reasons. Number one is that when you celebrate, you're honoring this hard thing that you just did. And so you're saying, I did this. And
Hmm.
you're allowing yourself to respect and honor who you are and the journey that you've been on. The other thing that happens when you're celebrating is that it's your emotions create habits. And so if
Hmm.
you're focusing on what worked as you moved up that mountain and the fact that you climbed that mountain, then you're going to get more of it. So if you focus on what doesn't work, you get more of that. And if you focus on what does work, you get more of that. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing that you want to do. Now, this is a poignant moment because you can't stay, as if you've ever climbed a mountain, they will tell you that that place is, you can only stay there for a very brief time because you're so high up, your brain and your body will start to die. There's not enough oxygen.
Hmm.
And so learning, being the oxygen of human growth, you have to find a way to either go to a new mountain or continue to climb. So it's a summit, not the summit.
Hmm.
And so once you know that this plateau could become a precipice, you recognize I must jump to a new curve. I must if I want to continue to grow. And I argue that growth is our default setting. And so that's when you start to say to yourself, okay, so what do I need to do to continue to grow? And you start to prime your brain to think about, all right, let me explore some new curves. What will
Hmm.
those look like? And start to ask those questions of, well, I could do this, or I could do that, or I could do another thing. And in the book, we have a list of 7 questions that you can ask yourself as you're thinking about what you want to do, knowing that you're going to try a lot of curves and many of them won't work.
Hmm.
That's part of the process. We know from disruption theory that when you're willing to play where no one else is playing, your odds of success go up by 6 times, but that's 6% to 36%. So there's still this 64% chance it's not going to work. It's the same when you jump to new curves. We jump to new curves all the time and we explore for a moment. It's like being stranded on a desert island of a curve. And we say, nope, this one isn't going to work for me. Let's find a new island. But we learned something in the process. If if only how to flex the muscle of doing something new, because the older we get, the more we can insulate ourselves from ever doing anything new.
Yeah.
And that muscle, we must keep it strong.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
will stop there.
Yeah, I love it. I jump, I leap, I I do. I say yes first and then figure it out
Yeah.
afterwards.
Mm,
And it's scary. And yeah, I don't always do it right, but it's not about doing it right. It's about the growth
mhm.
and what you've learned. And, again, the great resignation is sort of, I have to quit this place. The great aspiration is, where is my next opportunity of growth?
Right.
And that could be exactly where I am. You use some great examples in the book of people who thought that they might have to go somewhere else,
Yes.
and yet they found their next curve right where they were.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell a quick story around that?
Sure.
A
Yes.
really quick one because I love this. So Daryl Rigby, he started at Bain straight out of college, and Bain is a consulting company, a very storied consultancy here in the United States, actually throughout the world. And he said that every time he got to basically the top of a curve, he would ask himself, okay, I could go look for a different job, but
Hmm.
how can I make my job here at Bain the perfect job? And he would start to craft what that could look like and then figure out how to make his case to jump to a new curve. Well, that was 40. Let me say that again, 40 years ago. And so it is possible. And you look at anybody who's been in a company for an extended period of time and start to map it, you will see that they've been on multiple S curves, because we want to grow, and you can't do the same job for 20 years without having different opportunities for growth.
Right. And it's not just at work. We're jumping and climbing different S curves in all areas of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh, we've got a couple of minutes left. Whitney, I want to let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Uh-huh.
And I also get to make a fun announcement. So first of all, if you have not bought the book, I don't know why you haven't. So go buy Smart Growth. In fact, I think you should go buy all three. In fact, there's 4 books with Dare, Dream, Do, which is another wonderful book filled with terrific stories of people jumping their S curves in all areas of their life. But for sure, get Smart Growth. Listen to the podcast. Now, most of your podcasts do have guests.
Yes.
There are a couple of podcasts, and the one that started it all for me, and I should have looked it up to know what number it was. It's like number 67 or something. That was you going into a deep dive on the
on Disrupt Yourself.
Yes, on Disrupt Yourself.
It was 80. It was episode 80. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so start with episode 80 and then go on to the wonderful all the wonderful guests that Whitney hosts. And Thursday mornings at 9:00 on LinkedIn, Whitney is live, and I can't tell you how many books I have bought from listening to you on Thursday morning. But every week, I don't know how fast you read. It's impossible for me to know this.
Yeah, I'm
but anyway, we are at the end of our time. I am going to be working with you, Whitney, aren't I?
Yes, and I'm so thrilled about it. Absolutely thrilled.
And working with Smart Growth and bringing that to organizations. So in addition to reaching out to Whitney and Disruption Advisors, you can also reach out to me. I don't usually do a sales pitch on these, but hey, this morning I can.
I love it.
So Whitney, this has been absolutely amazing having you here and sharing this model. And there's just bunch of people saying thank you. We've got somebody from your team has put some links in the chat, haven't they?
Yes, Jen Ross did. Yeah. So
Yes.
people, yes. Thank you, Jen Ross.
For the book. Now, if you're Canadian, which a lot of this audience probably is, Amazon.ca has it available, but any of your favorite booksellers, they all are carrying Smart Growth. So make sure you buy the book and make sure you listen in on the podcast.
Thank you, Libby.
Thank you, Whitney. This was absolutely amazing. And to everybody here, thank you again for tuning in. Next week, oh my gosh, not next week, but next time. I do this every other Wednesday. Be Remote. So Kevin Gardner is my guest from beremote.com. Finally, somebody has figured out how to simply and cost effectively create online working environments that work for everybody. So Kevin Gardner is my guest on March the 9th. So make sure that you tune in. And of course, I'll be sending some information out about that shortly. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been fantastic.